Discover the amazing transformation of this grandma, a touching true story of inspiration and hope. Martha sat in her kitchen, the sun streaming through the window, illuminating the patchwork quilt spread over the table. Each stitch told a story, a love letter to her late husband, a testament to family, and yet a silent reminder of dreams left unfulfilled. She listened to the laughter of her grandchildren playing outside, voices bright and carefree, filling the home with a sweetness that mingled awkwardly with her growing sense of inadequacy. What had she done beyond nurturing? As she poured another cup of coffee, the question hung heavy in the air. Every day she would hear about her children's successes, promotions, prestigious awards, and relationships blooming in vibrant cities. And there she was, Martha, the retired schoolteacher, clenching on to memories of lesson plans and parent-teacher conferences as if they were her trophies. What did she have to show for her years? Shadows of doubt crept into her mind, wrapping around the flickering flame of her own creativity, barely stoked over the years. Then, one afternoon, she ventured into the attic, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and reluctance. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight, lending an almost magical feeling to her search. Something pulled her toward a forgotten box, one she hadn't opened since her husband passed away. Inside lay yellowed pages filled with handwritten poetry, a treasure trove of deeply felt emotions and reflections that made her chest ache. Each stanza was a whisper from a past that felt both familiar and distant, reminding her of their shared dreams, aspirations, and the essence of their love. As she read his words, a flicker of possibility ignited within her. Martha reached for her long-abandoned notebook, the cover cracked from years of neglect. With every word she penned, she rediscovered feelings trapped within. Regrets spilled onto the pages, entangled in her memories, alongside hopes and lessons learned. Yet as her voice grew louder on the page, the shadows of doubt loomed larger. Could she really step into the light now, at her age, and share her truth? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the library's poetry night approached, Martha was a bundle of nerves. Her hands trembled as she prepared to step into a space filled with eager young voices. What if they laughed? What if they saw her age as a barrier instead of a wellspring of experience? The faces of local critics flickered in her mind, their dismissive smirks echoing her deepest fears about stepping into the spotlight. No matter how much she tried to quiet these voices, they punctured the burgeoning confidence she clung to as if it were a fragile balloon. The night of the open mic came, and she felt herself teetering on the edge of uncertainty. The library buzzed with excitement, but all she felt was the suffocating weight of her own expectations. Heart racing, she stood backstage, taking deep breaths while a whirlwind of anxious thoughts consumed her. Each moment stretched interminably, culminating in a pulse of dread as she realized the spotlight was now hers to claim, or to fear. As that moment drew near, the flicker of hope intertwined with an ache of vulnerability battling her insides. Could she truly face an audience that might see her at last? The yearning to share fought against the fear of judgment. In her heart, the tension built to a breaking point, leaving a gripping cliffhanger. Would she find the courage to embrace her voice, or would it fade away in the chaos of doubt? The moment had come. Martha felt her name being called, a gentle echo that pulled at her gut. It was as if the room had shrunk, and every pair of eyes was glued to her with an intensity she couldn't quite comprehend. She took a tentative step forward, her heart thudding loudly in her ears. "Just breathe," she whispered softly to herself, her own voice a fragile thread against the mounting noise of her insecurities. With each step, the shadows of doubt flickered less intensely, caught momentarily in the brightness of her desire to be heard. She grasped the edges of her notebook tightly, knuckles pale and trembling, but loosened her grip just enough to prevent it from falling to the floor. The microphone loomed before her, shiny and intimidating. Only a few moments passed, yet they stretched out, distorting her surroundings. She caught the gaze of a young woman seated near the front, her face open with encouragement, a spark igniting a glimmer of hope in Martha's chest. Could this be the validation she so desperately sought? As she moved closer, she felt the aged wood of the podium under her palms, a reminder of years spent scouring through literature, molding young minds, igniting passions. The memory infused her with a sense of purpose, a flicker of reclaiming pieces of herself long left dormant. "Hi, I'm Martha," she began, her voice unsure but audible, as she looked out to the audience for the first time. Almost immediately, her former students' bright smiles flashed into her mind, a testament to the impact she might have had. Briefly shying away from the pressure of their expectations, she felt empowered by a simple truth. She had the experience of a lifetime behind her, laden with wisdom and emotions begging to burst forth. But as the silence enveloped her, that familiar, encroaching anxiety threatened to claw its way back. What if her words failed to resonate? What if they didn't care? The thoughts streamed through her mind like clouds on a stormy day. Yet, deeply seated within her was a notion she couldn't ignore, the need to express, to write, to connect. Taking a deep breath, she opened the worn pages of her notebook and began to read, her voice wavering yet strong with emotion. Each poem was a reprieve, a distillation of years spent navigating the labyrinth of love, loss, and life. The timbre of her voice wove tales steeped in snapshots of her golden years, the laughter, the heartbreak, moments that stirred her soul like the early morning sun through the kitchen window. As she read, the audience began to lean in, absorbed by the very essence of her experiences, her vulnerability transforming into strength. Martha felt a weight lifting. She no longer saw herself as merely that older woman in their midst, but recognized her place as a storyteller, an artist who had lived her tales against currents of time. The final line hung in the air, the echo reverberating through her heart. Silence fell like a healing balm, replaced gradually by soft applause that swelled into a wave of supportive energy. For the first time, Martha felt seen, not just as a grandmother, but as a poet, capable of evoking emotions that bridged generations. And then came the most unexpected moment. Across the room, she caught that same woman's gaze again, but this time there was something deeper, recognition, a kindred spirit lurking beneath the surface. In that instant, a new revelation dawned on Martha. This was only the beginning of a journey yet to unfold, a path to explore creativity that transcended societal constraints. As the clapping reverberated, a flicker of determination ignited within her. This newfound confidence urged her forward. She could explore beyond the confines of the library stage, perhaps even beyond poetry. Ideas fluttered anxiously, hovering just out of reach, vibrant with potential. But before she could delve further into this nascent ambition, a sudden realization washed over her. There was more to expose, more depths within to unearth. Everyone had gathered to celebrate her words, yet the shadow of uncertainty loomed large. What would she do next? What would it mean to dare again, to dig deeper? The true test awaited just beyond the applause, the confrontation with herself, the metamorphosis from a hesitant reader to a bold creator ready to share her depths with the world. Would she seize this moment to explore uncharted territory, or would she retreat back behind barriers of doubt that had long held her captive? As the applause subsided, the warm energy of the room remained, enveloping Martha like a comforting embrace. Yet an unsettling feeling lingered close to the surface. Gratitude and excitement bubbled within her, but they were laced with the imminent question of what to do next. The stage no longer felt like a destination, but rather a stepping stone to something greater. Martha glanced around the room, observing the familiar faces. Each one had once nodded attentively as she guided them through literature, weaving stories of hope, love, and resilience. Now she stood before them as an artist in her own right, a note of harmony she had never allowed herself to play. And in that moment, she realized she wasn't just a voice, she was a vessel, ready to channel experiences into renewed creation. The reality struck. There was a difference between being seen and being known. Yes, she had shared her work, eliciting emotions in her audience, but had she truly connected with her own essence? She shifted uncomfortably, her mind racing with thoughts of what awaited her. Personal revelations? New endeavors? Or would she retreat, surrendering to safety once more? A lingering warmth surrounded her as people began to approach with compliments, each one a gentle reminder of her worth. Yet the fleeting moment of validation sparked a deeper question. Who was she beyond the admiration? What did it truly mean to be bold, to take ownership of her creativity? Was there still time to explore other avenues? An idea percolated within her, urging to surface. She had tucked away her aspirations for years, but now they beckoned, whispering their potential. Could she venture into storytelling beyond poetry? Was there a narrative in her life waiting to be unraveled, one that could inspire both herself and others? Martha felt a spark ignite in her chest. Her thoughts began to crystallize. Perhaps she could write a memoir, capturing the journey of a woman who dared to reclaim her voice after years of silence. This wasn't about nostalgia. It was about true transformation, the journey of vulnerability into empowerment. With each moment of deliberation, resistance battled against resolve. The shadows of self-doubt whispered critiques, that nagging voice questioning her abilities, her worthiness to tell such a story. Yet juxtaposed against that, the memory of her recent performance flared. The sense of achievement expanded within her as she recalled the intimate connection shared through her words. Determined now, she stood taller. The hesitation that plagued her moments ago began to wane, replaced by a calculated ambition. With each interaction, she felt the possibility swell. Was that woman near the front of the room still watching? What was her story? It was time for Martha to confront her own truths as well, to dig deeper into her own story and how it intersected with those around her. She had to face her fears head-on. Perhaps the woman's gaze held the answer. Perhaps it could reveal the threads of her own narrative. There was a call to uncover hidden talents, memories worth preserving. This could be a true understanding of what it meant to be alive, to share authentically, to empower herself beyond written pages. Martha's heart raced as she pushed forward, each thought mapping out the path to something more significant. Could she have the courage to explore not just her own life experiences, but weave in the stories of others who shared similar journeys? Despite the feelings of intimidation, she knew change was necessary. This was not simply a consideration, it was a commitment. The applause had galvanized her, but unearthing her story was the real test. Could she translate this passion into an exploration of self and others? As she stepped off the stage, her resolve solidified. The next chapter awaited, a journey to embrace both her voice and the tales hidden in the corners of her experiences. The audience left, but she remained, her heart thumping in anticipation. Was she ready to delve into the labyrinth of her own narrative, or would the shadows of doubt pull her back once more? The path to self-discovery loomed large, and Martha was prepared to step onto it, but only if she could find the courage to embrace it fully. The room had emptied, leaving behind traces of laughter and the scent of coffee that lingered like unresolved questions. Martha stood alone now, still under the muted stage lights, lost in thought. This was not merely a moment of solitude, it was the precipice from which she would either leap into her aspirations or retreat back into the shadows of doubt that had long haunted her. A memoir was not just a collection of words, it was the embodiment of her essence, her struggles and triumphs. The daunting nature of this task gripped her, but with it came an exhilarating sense of freedom. To compose such a narrative was to reclaim the fragments of herself she had long kept hidden. Yet another wave of fear washed over her. What if she ventured too far? What if the truth she wished to uncover shattered the image she had built for herself, or alienated those she cared about? As she collected her belongings, Martha's mind raced through her past. Each pivotal moment, every heartbreak, joyful memory, and challenge distilled into small chapters within her life. No doubt the thread of vulnerability was a powerful one. It was potentially a bridge connecting her to others who walked similar paths. But the idea of exposing her innermost thoughts and feelings, however liberating, was terrifying. In that moment, a familiar face reappeared in her mind's eye, the woman from the audience who had gazed at her with intent. What story resided behind that look? Was it one of admiration, or was it a call for understanding, a need reflected in the faces of those who sought connection? Grabbing her notebook, Martha found solace in the page's blankness. It was a landscape untouched, waiting for her to paint her experiences into existence. As she stepped at a coffee shop nearby, the hum of conversations filled the background as she breathed in the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. It provided a sense of grounding amidst her swirling thoughts. She began to write, slowly allowing her pen to flow across the page. The first lines were awkward and clumsy, but as she continued, they began to morph into something tangible, a mosaic of her voice, breaking through years of silence. She delved deep into the areas of her life that brought her shame and pride, weaving in the narrative of resilience built upon those experiences. However, the resurfacing of old wounds was disquieting, forcing her to confront not just her journey towards self-acceptance, but also the relationships that had shaped her narrative. Faces of friends, family, and even past lovers crowded her mind, and she grappled with the implications of sharing these stories. Would her revelations be met with understanding or resistance? At that moment, clarity washed over her. To tell her story was not about debating the validity of others' responses. It was about embracing her truth, showing the beauty of transformation she had made from pain. And so a decision emerged. She would write not only for herself, but for those who needed to see their own journeys reflected in hers. Martha's determination solidified. She would not retreat from her voice, nor from the tales that intertwined with her own. Each word she pieced together became a thread of connection, capturing moments of intersection with others who had fought their battles silently. As she finished her first piece, a shiver of exhilaration coursed through her. It was the recognition that she had embarked on an authentic journey, one that urged her to keep digging, to unearth stories that lay buried in her heart. But just as she was about to finish her thoughts, a text notification broke through her concentration. It was from an old friend, someone she had lost touch with. A mere coincidence, or a sign that her path was about to twist yet again? Just like that, a longing for connection ignited anew within her. The moment had come to face not only her own fears, but also the echoes of relationships she had neglected. The next phase of her journey awaited, one that could challenge her further and test the depths of her revelations. Would she dare to reach out and reconnect, embracing the past, or would uncertainty hold her back from forging new paths? As the text notification faded from her screen, Martha's heart raced with the possibility of rekindled friendship, yet a knot tightened in her stomach. The past few years had taught her to tread carefully through waters that could easily become turbulent. This was not just about reaching out. It was about confronting the repercussions of the choices she had made and the people she had distanced herself from. In the coffee shop, the ambient chatter drifted away, each conversation a distant echo as her focus shifted inward. Would she have the courage to open the floodgates of her past? This friend, Claire, had once been her confidant, a sounding board for dreams and fears alike. Yet, life had driven a wedge between them, and Martha was left wondering if she would still see the warmth in Claire's eyes or find a stranger where familiarity once thrived. Her fingers hovered above the screen, paralyzed by a paradox of desire and fear. Should she craft a message that explained her silence? Or perhaps a question, a simple, "How have you been?" that could be a gentle prod to see if Claire still harbored any warmth for their friendship. But what if the abyss of unspoken words consumed them both? As existential questions collided in her thoughts, Martha grabbed her notebook again, seeking refuge in the tangible rather than the abstract. She needed a plan, a strategic way to map out not just her memoir, but also the future connections she aspired to cultivate. The memoir was a canvas, but the threads of her relationships needed an outline too. With a deep breath, she opened a new page and drew a line down the middle. On one side, she listed the fears that plagued her regarding reaching out to Claire: vulnerability, rejection, potential misunderstandings. Conversely, she penned the possible outcomes: reconciliation, a rekindling of friendship, shared stories that could heal both of them. The visual juxtaposition illuminated a crucial truth. While vulnerability was her enemy, it was also the pathway to connection and understanding. Martha found herself reflecting on how she had often shied away from deep connections, convincing herself that her solitude was a sanctuary. But this solitude was now suffocating, teetering on the brink of loneliness. Each realization felt like a key unlocking suppressed portions of her spirit. She closed her eyes momentarily, envisioning the act of reaching out, a leap into the unknown that could either be a harrowing fall or a soaring rise toward renewed camaraderie. But the knowledge of her upcoming memoir loomed heavily above her, a resonant weight reminding her of how intertwined her story was with those she had kept distant. Perhaps Claire's involvement could forge a more authentic narrative. Together, they could illuminate the complexities of friendship, showing not just the sunny moments, but the valleys of conflict they had both trudged through. Within that realization, a spark ignited a new sense of purpose. Martha made a decision. Not only would she write her truth, but she would embrace the truths of others, transforming her story from an isolated echo to a rich tapestry of interwoven experiences. With newfound determination, she crafted her message to Claire, her heart pounding as she hit send. The act felt monumental, a testament to her evolving self. Seconds turned into a couple of minutes, and just as self-doubt began to creep back in, her phone buzzed. A reply. Martha's breath caught in her throat. What awaited her on the other side of this digital barrier? Would it be the connection she craved, or would it serve another cold reminder of the chasm that had formed? The moment had come. The next chapter of her memoir awaited, rife with the potential for revelations that could shape not just her story, but every story connected to her past. Martha stared at her phone, frozen in a moment where hope and anxiety waged a silent war within her. The response opened an unknown door, a threshold laden with the weight of history and unfulfilled expectations. She could hear her own breath, an audible metronome marking time as she processed the potential implications of Claire's reply. Finally, she summoned the courage to read the message. "Hi, Martha. It's been ages. How are you? I've missed you." A wave of warmth washed over her, soothing the tension that had coiled tightly in her chest. There it was, the thread of familiarity, a lifeline reaching across the chasm of silence that had stretched painfully for too long. But with that warmth came a rush of insecurities. Did Claire really mean it? Did she have the right to hope for a rekindled friendship? Martha's grip on the phone tightened as an itch of doubt crept in. It was the familiar claw of self-inquisition. She questioned not only her worthiness to reconnect, but also the authenticity of Claire's feelings. Had Claire carried her absence with the same weight, or had she moved effortlessly through life, unhindered by the friendships that had fallen away? Martha took a moment to inhale deeply, acknowledging these fears without allowing them to extinguish her newfound resolve. This was precisely the vulnerable stance that her memoir initiated, confronting uncertainty while accepting the potential for growth. The decision she made to reach out had put her at a crossroads, one where she must choose between fear and optimism. She sighed, setting the phone down, glancing at her notebook. The list she had created earlier seemed more relevant than ever. What did she want from this reconnection? Did it matter that her past version of self felt distant and fragmented? She was no longer the person who had abandoned the relationship. She had transformed. It was now about embracing the complexity of human connection, both past and present. Fueled by a deeper understanding of who she had become, she turned her focus to drafting a response. Each word felt like a stepping stone across a river of self-doubt. Martha decided to keep it simple, genuine, a few sentences that expressed her desire to reconnect without diving into the depth of their shared history just yet. She felt the relief that came with articulating her feelings instead of drowning in them. After sending the message, a wave of exhilaration and fear washed over her. The act was as empowering as it was nerve-wracking, marking a critical juncture in her personal narrative. She was no longer just an author of her memoir. She actively participated in the stories of others. The response from Claire could illuminate or darken a new chapter, but it was the journey she was beginning to appreciate, the growing edge of transformation through reconciliation. That evening, she paced her small apartment, enveloped in a swirling mix of anticipation and uncertainty. Writing felt different now. It was no longer solely an exercise in self-reflection, but a dialogue with the past. Perhaps Claire would share her side too, allowing Martha to weave their narrative more fully into her memoir. This collaboration could deepen the authenticity of her work, allowing readers to feel the texture of their experience, showing how bridges could be rebuilt over fractured connections. Just as she settled at her desk to work on a new section of her memoir, her phone buzzed again. It was Claire. A pang of excitement shot through her. Was it a simple, "let's meet," or something more? Martha hesitated, heart racing, as she opened the message. The revelation felt imminent. Would everything she had built begin to shift? Or had she only awakened deeper layers of vulnerability waiting to be explored? Martha's heart thudded silently against her ribcage as the screen lit up, revealing Claire's response. Her breath caught in her throat, the tension palpable as she processed the message. "Let's catch up. I'm free Thursday afternoon. What do you think?" A flood of emotions crashed over her, elation, anxiety, and a creeping fear of the unknown that gripped her even tighter than before. Could she really meet with Claire after all this time? The prospect sent tremors through her. The invitation felt both exhilarating and daunting. She asked herself how she would navigate their shared past, both the warmth and the wounds, as her mind flooded with memories. Paradoxically, as she considered their reunion, she noticed a subtle but unwavering determination settling in. This wasn't merely about friendship, it felt like a pivotal moment in her personal evolution. Thursday sprawled ahead as an expansively blank canvas, alive with possibilities but streaked with anxiety. To gather the courage to face Claire, Martha needed to prepare. She returned to her notebook to pen down her thoughts, sketching out not only what she wanted to say to Claire, but how she wished to present herself. The transformation she felt inside could not just be a silent undercurrent, it needed articulation. Scribbles on the page morphed into strategies. What if Claire's feelings towards her were not as amiable as she hoped? The thought pierced through her newfound conviction. Yet, rather than retreating into the comforting embrace of doubt, Martha decided to embrace the potential confrontation. She wrote down affirmations to ground herself, articulating her growth, recognizing her worthiness of the relationship she sought to rebuild. At work the next day, the report that needed finishing felt secondary to the monumental shift occurring within her. Colleagues noticed her distraction, the way she stared into space or smiled absent-mindedly. Martha was aware of this detachment, but found it oddly comforting. The business world felt ever so distant, overshadowed by her desire to reconnect. During lunch, Jessica, her coworker, caught her unguarded. "Something on your mind? You seem different," she remarked, stirring a camaraderie Martha hadn't expected to form in such a simple exchange. The recognition of change elicited a spark within her. "I might be reinventing my past," Martha replied cautiously. Jessica leaned closer, intrigued. "That sounds big. What do you mean?" Martha hesitated. The instinct to retreat emerged, to keep her memoir, her emotions, and her potential journey under wraps. Yet she felt an undeniable urge to articulate her vision, if only to a kindred spirit. "I'm reconnecting with an old friend. It's complicated, but I think it might change everything." Jessica nodded knowingly, eyes alight with understanding. "You know, friendships can sometimes lead us to discover more about ourselves than we ever realized," she encouraged, and in that moment Martha felt a flicker of hope grow within her. Their conversation lingered with her like a mantra, reinforcing her belief in the transformative power of connection. As Thursday approached, Martha found herself oscillating between excitement and trepidation. At last the day arrived, and she stood in front of her mirror, voice shaking as she practiced what she might say to Claire. The reflection staring back seemed unfamiliar, yet brimming with potential. Martha realized that this wasn't merely a reunion, this was a step towards a new chapter, where she could engage with her past without fear. Dressed carefully to project both warmth and confidence, Martha felt the weight of her choice. As she gathered her belongings, a sudden realization hit her. It was not merely about mending old wounds, but about the courage to confront what lay hidden beneath the surface. Stepping outside, determination thrumming in her chest, she took a deep breath and felt the world around her shift slightly. Reconciliation reflected a dual journey, one of introspection and the other of reaching outside herself. Her phone buzzed again. Claire had sent a location for their meeting, but something inside Martha stirred, nudging her to ask herself, was she ready for all that lay ahead with Claire? The thought echoed in her mind as she moved towards the cafe. Was it possible that this meeting would bring forth not just shared memories, but unearth deeper secrets she had buried long ago? Martha stepped into the cafe, her breath hitching at the familiar scent of roasted coffee mingled with warm pastries. It felt like the setting for a pivotal moment, ripe with potential, with the kind of atmosphere that promised revealing conversations. She scanned the room, her eyes searching for Claire amidst the bustling patrons, each engrossed in their own worlds. As she settled into a corner table, a kaleidoscope of emotion swirled within her. The echoes of laughter, the clinking of cups, all seemed to ignite gratification for the mundane moments she once took for granted. Yet that serenity was tinged with a flicker of fear. What would she say when she faced Claire? What if their reunion unraveled the progress she'd fought so hard to achieve? The clock on the wall ticked ominously, each sound melding with the rhythm of her rising anxiety. Her grip on the table tightened as she reviewed her affirmations in her mind. Strong, capable, deserving of this moment. Then she recalled Jessica's words about discovering oneself through friendships. It was daunting, yet exhilarating. She felt at the precipice of a significant chapter. As she waited, Martha allowed herself to reflect on the years gone by. She thought of the many transitions she had navigated, the moments where certainty morphed into doubt, and how each experience had sculpted her resilience. In those quiet reflections, a sense of clarity emerged. This was not merely about finding common ground with Claire. It was about asserting her own narrative amidst their shared history. And then Claire entered the cafe, her presence immediately commanding Martha's attention. The unmistakable aura of shared history was palpable in the very air between them. Claire spotted Martha, her expression shifting from surprise to warmth, then to apprehension. For a fleeting moment, time stood still as they locked eyes, both grappling with the significance of this encounter. "Martha," Claire said, voice tinged with uncertainty as she approached, "it's been a long time." "Yes, it has," Martha replied, her own voice steadier than she anticipated. "I've missed you." They both settled into the awkwardness of their reunion, seated across from one another, ghostly shadows of their past weaving unseen strings between them. Silence hung thick in the air as they studied each other. Words unspoken crackled with the energy of unresolved feelings that lay dormant for years. Martha felt the weight of her own intention pressing down. This was her moment, not just for reconciliation, but for reclaiming her identity. "Claire, I want to acknowledge the past. It wasn't always easy between us, and I know we both have our narratives." Claire's brow furrowed, surprise gleaming in her eyes. "I never thought we'd get to this point again. Before we move forward, I need to understand what went wrong," Martha interjected, her heartbeat quickening as she laid bare her resolve. "I want us to be honest about our feelings, so we can decide what this means for us now." As the words tumbled out, Martha sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Claire exhaled softly, processing the challenge woven into Martha's statement. This was where the potential for discovery lay, not just in mending their bond, but in understanding the cracks formed by silence and assumptions. The conversation flowed between them, each revelation a stepping stone toward clarity. Claire spoke of her own insecurities, the struggles that led to barriers within their friendship. Martha listened intently, surprised at how the shared experiences could unveil layers of understanding she had never fully appreciated. In those moments of vulnerability, Martha confronted her own shortcomings and misconceptions, reshaping her perspective on their tangled past. The anxiety that enveloped her gradually unraveled into a realization. This was more than a simple catch-up. It became an opportunity for mutual growth. Just as the dialogue turned deeper, an unexpected topic emerged, a hidden truth that stirred within Martha, needing to be addressed. With each passing moment, the urgency to reveal the truth felt more pressing. How could she navigate this next piece of their past without risking everything they had begun to rebuild? "What I need to share is pivotal, Claire," Martha said, her voice low but steady. "There's something from our past I've never truly confronted, and I think it's fundamental to the path we're opening here." The stakes had risen, and she could feel the weight of their shared history bearing down on the moment. Claire's expression shifted, the anticipation making her more radiant yet vulnerable. Martha took a breath, ready to unveil the deepest secrets. Was she prepared to confront the consequences of her disclosure? Would this final revelation either solidify their reconnected connection or shatter it once and for all? Martha's heart raced as she gauged Claire's readiness. The cafe felt increasingly intimate, as if the walls themselves were leaning in to listen. She wrestled with the gravity of her next words, aware that this moment could redefine everything. Wasn't she just stepping into a conversation about friendship? Yet, in this space, she was grappling with layers of her past. "Claire," Martha began, her heart hammering behind her ribs, "do you remember when we started drifting apart?" The question hung heavily between them, a tether to days marked by isolation. Claire's brows knit together, her expression contemplative. "Of course, but did you ever think it could have been my fault?" "No, it wasn't just you," Martha countered, her voice threading the past with present accountability. "I withdrew. I let fear shape my actions, which in turn created distance between us." She could see Claire processing the admission, vulnerability flashing across her face. This was a crucial reflection. Acknowledging shared responsibility lent weight to their reconnection. Martha took a leap, her next words surfacing from the depths of her own regret. "That time you needed me when your dad was sick, I was so absorbed in my own frustrations that I couldn't be there for you. I wish I had confronted myself then." Martha observed Claire's shoulders drop slightly, the tension between them easing as raw honesty flowed unimpeded. "You weren't the only one struggling," Claire admitted, her voice subdued. "I didn't know how to ask for help. I thought you would just understand." In that moment, Martha recognized a shared enemy, miscommunication cloaked in silence. The thought sharpened her focus. She had often equated silence with strength, yet here it only revealed weakness. She needed to assert herself, to break that cycle. "I want to understand you better, Claire, and I hope to feel understood too." Despite her shaky stance, there was a newfound clarity in her tone. The air pulsed with unprocessed feelings, each revelation crafting a bridge between them. As they ventured deeper, memories poured forth, echoing with tales of adolescent dreams and insecurities. There was healing in both laughter and sorrow, reshaping their histories as they dissected their decisions together. Yet lurking just beneath this cathartic exchange was the gnawing reality of her unspoken truth. Martha could not delay her revelation any longer. The weight of the moment crescendoed, pressing against her like a tidal wave. "I have to share something significant, something I've kept buried for years." The words circled in her mind like an approaching storm. Her pulse quickened, but she swallowed hard, determined to navigate this tempest. "It involves my brother and the choice that changed everything." Claire's curiosity radiated, her eyes widening with the anticipation of the unknown. The shift was palpable, their connection becoming finely taut. She breathed in deeply, summoning the courage to delve into the shadows that had haunted her since her brother's death. Would unveiling this secret unearth buried emotions once again, or would it shine light on her path forward? "After he passed, I focused on everything around me except the pain," Martha confessed, her voice steady yet fragile. "I thought I was being strong, but all I was really doing was hiding." Each word lifted from her chest like a weight, yet it also felt like plunging into ice-cold water. As Claire leaned in, every ounce of her attention now fixated on Martha, the moment crystallized into significance. Would this act of revelation bind their newly molded friendship tighter, or complicate it with the rawness of unresolved sorrow? Martha braced herself, knowing that sharing this could reshape their future together. As silence fell between them again, the cafe's ambiance faded into the background. The stakes had never felt higher, and Martha sensed that this conversation could either empower them or thrust old grievances back into the light. Wouldn't destiny hinge on this confession? "Are you sure you want to hear this?" Martha's voice trembled under the weight of uncertainty. Neither could predict the journey they may embark upon when she opened this door, yet she felt a stirring of uncertainty and purpose surge within her. What lay on the other side of this truth could forge a connection or catalyze new discord. Martha's next move could determine how profoundly they would reconnect. Would vulnerability deepen their bond, or shatter it forever? Martha took a steadying breath, feeling the gravity of the moment as she searched Claire's eyes for reassurance. She was no longer just the woman who had faced the podium at the library, but a resilient soul ready for confrontation, both with her past and her present. "After my brother's death," she began, her voice clear yet laced with emotion, "I retreated into myself. I was consumed by guilt and fear, convinced that my grief was something I had to bear alone." The air hung heavy with her words, weighty yet liberating. Claire's expression softened, empathy radiating from her. "Martha, I had no idea, but you weren't alone. I was trying to reach out to you too," she replied, her voice steady, yet tinged with the sweetness of shared remembrance. Martha felt a wave of warmth. A realization began to surface. They were both trapped in a narrative that had forged distance and disconnection, a dance of silence that shrouded their hearts. The tender acknowledgement felt transformative. They were at last confronting their truth. "I thought by staying silent I was protecting everyone," Martha continued, "but in doing so I neglected the very relationships that mattered most. I had to learn the hard way that true strength isn't in hiding, it's in revealing. I've decided to write about my experiences, to finally unburden myself and share the intricacies of my journey," she confessed, the determination in her voice a stark contrast to the fear she had contemplated. Claire didn't flinch. Rather, she leaned closer. "Your story matters, Martha. There is so much power in sharing your truth." Her support emboldened Martha further. This was a pivotal moment for them both. For the first time, revealing her truth felt less like a vulnerability and more like a purpose. Each word she shared opened pathways of understanding, unraveling the layers of their collective history. "The truth is," Martha said, gathering steam, "that I want to rewrite our narrative together. I want to create something meaningful that captures not just the pain, but also the love and resilience that can arise from it." Tears shimmered in Claire's eyes. "I think that's beautiful. I've missed our connection, the magic we once had. If you're willing to share your journey, I want to share mine too. Together, we can create a dialogue that celebrates both stories." Martha felt an exhilarating surge of hope swell within her, a promise of growth, healing, and collaboration. They were no longer just two friends rekindling an old bond. They were co-authors in a narrative of resilience forged from love and vulnerability. As they continued to talk, the heavy fog of the past began parting, revealing a landscape rich with potential. Through shared stories of loss and personal discovery, Martha saw a glimpse of what their collaboration could mean. It could redefine them both, transforming them into advocates for emotional authenticity and connection. After their meeting, as Martha walked home, she felt lighter, infused with a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced in years. She reflected on her journey. Every stitch of doubt she had gradually unraveled now felt like a testament to her growth. Now, the memoir she envisioned was no longer just hers to tell, it was also Claire's. This understanding brought excitement coursing through her veins, amplifying her determination to explore her newfound vision. Writing would become a vessel of reclamation, one filled with hope for all those who felt disconnected from their truths. Back in her cozy kitchen, with sunlight streaming through the window as it had on that fateful day, she resumed penning her memoir. Each stroke of her pen filled the pages with poetry intertwined with narrative, a rich tapestry reflecting the intertwining nature of her life's journey. Martha recognized the very threads that had once seemed fragile were now weaving a stronger fabric, thicker with the bonds of shared experiences and mutual healing. Her fears had been transformed into triumphs, each word affirming her place in the world, no longer merely a caretaker, but a creator and a storyteller. Her finished work would not just be a farewell to her past, but a powerful embrace of her present and future, a call to all those who, like her, feared vulnerability yet longed for connection. Finally, feeling the urge to spread the word of her awakening, she prepared to launch a blog dedicated to storytelling from her life experiences alongside Claire's contributions. This wasn't merely a creative endeavor, it was an invitation to others to articulate their journeys and embrace their truths. Martha felt solid confidence surging within her. She had established a recognized voice, one built upon the foundation of her once hidden insecurities, now triumphantly on display for the world to witness. The shadows of doubt that used to follow her had transformed into a radiant beacon of empowerment. In returning to her roots, she accomplished something profound, a bridge between her past, present, and the myriad stories yet to be told. Martha smiled at the thought, the patchwork quilt on her table now symbolizing not just her history, but a vibrant future ripe with creative possibilities. This was her moment. The transformation was complete. She had embraced her essence, and it felt magnificently liberating. Now it was time to reach out and invite others into the journey, reminding them that they too could find their voices and share their own powerful stories. You need to subscribe now to ensure you never miss a transformative tale like this one. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread these important messages. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your involvement matters. Join the community that champions stories of resilience and growth.